Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over the Øresund once again to Denmark, and we're going to revisit a brewery who I personally rate pretty highly. But this is a style of beer that I've never tried from them before, so I'm really hoping that this one turns out to be quite nice, and I'm quite excited to try this one, I have to say. For this review then, we are going to go to Greve, which is just out to the west of Copenhagen, and we're having a look at my 6th beer from Alefarm Brewing. So this one is called The Dreams Never Leave You, and it's an Imperial Stout coming in at 11% ABV. So as I said, I have never tried an Imperial Stout from these guys before. I got this one at Glassbanken.se, and there was 2 or 3 Imperial Stouts there, and you know, there didn't seem to be all that much difference between them. So basically I just picked one whose name that I liked, and I thought this one sounded a little bit like a Stratovarius album, so I thought, well, you know, this could be quite an interesting one. So here we are, but an 11% Imperial Stout, this one. I have had an Imperial Porter from these guys before. I really forget the name of this one, but it's one of the ones that they do a lot of different versions of, and I'm sure it was the coconut version of that one that I had. But this brewery were mainly known in the early days for their sour beers, and more recently, of course, they've been doing a lot of hazy New England style IPAs and things like that as well. The last beer that I had from these guys was the Let's Go Back to California, which was a West Coast IPA brewed in collaboration with Symmetry Brewery from England, and that one turned out to be very, very nice. That was bought in the same box as this one. So, as I say, very curious to see how my first Imperial Stout turns out from Alefarm, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. I do wish I could review these beers a little bit more regularly for you, but for some reason Alefarm just seemed to have kind of disappeared out of the likes of Kiosk and Systembolaget and things, so Glassbanken are the only place I know that I can get Alefarm beers from, so I'll need to keep an eye on that, I have to say. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Alefarm before. No doubt you will see some more at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Alefarm then, on to my brewery notes. So Alefarm, as I've told you before, is the brainchild of Andreas Skog Larsen and Kasper Tiedemann, and the company was founded back in 2015. So Andreas had been a home brewer for a good number of years, but he also worked for a period of time as a librarian, while Kasper, on the other hand, has a very extensive background in the IT sector, and he's involved in several different companies and organisations, one of which is his own consultancy firm. So originally they based the company on a farm to the north of Copenhagen, but soon they moved the business to Køge, which is to the southwest of the city, and for a long time they were brewing with a very small 200-litre brew kit, but this was intended as a pilot or transition brew kit, and over the following years they continued to kind of expand the repertoire of beers that they were producing and gradually kind of scale up a little bit. So in 2018 they opened up a new 20-hectolitre brewery in Greve, and this has a canning line, and their beers have been starting to export abroad as well. At this point though, Andreas Larsen left the company and he went into brewing cider. They also had Mark Walewski brewing for them, who used to work for Beavertown, but he's now brewing with Mikael London, and the brewery itself is now run on a daily basis by Kasper and his wife Britt. But as of May 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, Alefarm have produced around 250 different beers, which is pretty prolific. That's basically one beer a week over the last 5 years, which is pretty damn impressive. So yeah, as I said to you, this brewery are mainly known for the kind of hazy New England IPAs at the moment. They have been diversifying a little bit, I've noticed, over the last year or so, and before that they were really known for their sour beers. I think when they first started they were brewing exclusively sour beers, and it was only when they went into the new brewery, I think, that they started doing the sort of hazy IPAs and things like that as well. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting point to make about this brewery. They are one of the Danish breweries that I really recommend that you check out. There's a very good standard of craft beer in Denmark these days. Of course, you've got the old boys like Mikkeller, Toul, Amar, you've got Dry and Bitter, you've got Gamma Brewing as well, Flying Couch, of course, in Copenhagen. You've got the newer guys like Slow Burn, who are doing some very interesting stuff, Kaleidoscope, you've got Oben Brewery, you have Abeltoft, you've got you know, Bad Seed Brewing as well. There's a lot of really good breweries in Denmark these days. Ugly Duck have got some interesting beers as well, I have to say. But yeah, a really interesting brewery, this one, and one that I definitely recommend that you check out if you get the chance. So yeah, let's leave the history part of that. If you want to learn more about the brewery, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this one then. I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. So yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this before we open up. There you can see the dream catcher. I think these were designed by the Native Americans, if I remember rightly. So yeah, I think that's where these dream catchers originally came from. My sister had one in her room when we were young, actually. There you can see on the back there is the Alefarm Brewing symbol, which does look just a little bit like a barn. I guess the fact that the brewery was based on a farm before was the main reason why they called it Alefarm. But yeah, an 11% Imperial Stout. This one doesn't say that it has any adjuncts and things added to it. So yeah, I guess this one will be a very kind of straight up thing. So we'll need to kind of determine exactly what type of Imperial Stout it actually is. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. So without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. I always like this when you get different styles of beer from breweries who, you know, are not well known for these things. You know, Treehouse, everyone knows Treehouse for the kind of hazy New England IPAs, but these guys have got some beautiful kind of milk stouts and things like that there, and I was able to try some of those thanks to Chris Contreras. Of course, one of my American dude living in Belgium, he sent me some of those. So I love this when you try different styles from breweries that are known for certain things. And I'll tell you something, the aroma that comes out of this as soon as you open up is very, very powerful. Lots of nice kind of brown sugars and lots of sweet kind of chocolatey notes there. So yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. You can see there's a quarter finger of a frothy dark tan head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, and the head is incidentally just fading away to be a very, very thin foamy layer. You know, the thing, you'll always get that with higher alcohol beers, the head will fade away quite a little bit, and I have heard that it's to do, the amount of head that you get is a lot to do with the amount of wheat that a beer has. So beers that have more wheat in them tend to hold the head better, from what I gather. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider what style it is, but I think it should be pretty damn nice. Knowing this brewery, I don't think they're going to put a bad beer out there. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Yeah, that smells really nice. Yeah, this one, it's got a really nice balance to it, I have to say. It does smell really quite roasty and toasty. There's a good bit of a kind of black roasty toasty malt coming out of this one. Quite a bit of a sort of well-fired bread crust as well. I do wonder if there's been one of the Carafa malts from Weirmann and Bamberg used in here. Yeah, it does. It really leans towards the roasty toasty side of things to a degree, but there's a lot of sweetness also kind of balancing that out. You've got a hell of a lot of chocolate in there. It's quite a high cocoa chocolate actually, but it's also, there's a good bit of a very dark treacly molasses sugar in this one as well, which is great. So I really like how that goes together. So yeah, lots of dark chocolate in there, like I say, a very high kind of 80-90% cocoa. You've got a little bit, there is a little touch of a kind of milkier chocolate in this one as well, but there's definitely not, as far as I can figure, there's not really lactose or anything in this beer. Not really any vanilla or anything like that either, but there's a lot of brown sugar. For me, you can smell this really kind of dry, well-fired, treacly molasses sort of thing to this one, really, really highly caramelised. brown sugar, and of course that is going to be partially down to what malts you use, and it's also going to be partially down to how long the boil of the beer is, because the longer you boil the longer a boil you have during the brewing process, the more caramelized the brown sugars and stuff are going to get. So yeah, the malty base of this one is really nice. There's one or two woody undertones to it, a little bit of a kind of nutty character as well, which I really like. So yeah, I really like how this one, I love how this one goes together actually. This has got a very, very nice, it's got a very, very nice blend of aromas in here. As I say, a bit roasty and toasty, some nice kind of sweet brown sugary notes, and also a good little bit of a dark chocolate in there as well. It does smell like it's going to, I'm wondering with the prominence that you have from these roasty toasty things, whether it's going to lean towards that more kind of Russian Imperial stout type thing, just, you know, with the more roasty characteristics. But I think regardless, I think this is going to be a pretty damn nice beer, I have to say. Knowing Alefarm, they don't usually, I can't remember a bad beer that I've had from these guys. Yeah, this one, I think it smells very, very nice. It really starts to get sweeter the more that you smell of it as well. On the hoppy side of things, you can definitely get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. The earthiness does have a bit of strength to it. There's a nice bit of floral aromaticity. Then you also get a little bit of a lighter grassiness as well, and there's some lovely kind of fruity characteristics to this beer as well. So I like how that all goes together in this one. So yeah, the malty side of things. Sorry, the fruity side of things. Why am I saying malty when I'm looking at fruity? So for me, the fruity side is quite, it's quite sort of blackberry-ish and blackcurranty-ish. It's actually got quite a juicy berry quality to it. I mean, in terms of hops, it could be, what could that be? And there's a few possibilities there. One hop that I learned about the other day was Eureka, so it could be Eureka that's in this. Because that gives you some of these lovely blackberry notes. It could be Williamette, it could be a bit of Summit, you know, it could even be a bit of Cascade or something like that. But I would suspect that the floral notes would be a lot stronger in this if it was. I mean, the older hop, the English hops, you've got the Brandling's Cross, and then from Germany, of course, you've got Northern Brewer as well, actually. So yeah, Northern Brewer very popular in Doppelbox. But yeah, you get a wee bit of a figgy note out of this one. There is a bit of a kind of thicker plummy note to it. It's not quite got the raisiny sharpness, I don't think. But yeah, plummy juiciness, a little bit of blackcurranty blackberry quality, and just a bit of a lighter kind of figgy note to this one as well. But overall, the aroma of this beer is really quite nice, and I like how everything fits together on this one. So it gets a thumbs up from me in terms of its aroma. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how it got on. This one is the Dreams, what is it called? The Dreams Never Leave You, an 11% Imperial Stout from Alefarm Brewing in Greve, just out to the west of Copenhagen. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål. That's nice, actually. I like that. Yeah, this is one of these ones. First impression is, it starts off and it's very, very smooth and almost quite slick. But now, you can really feel the dryness coming out of this one. I think this, in terms of what kind of subcategory stout it is, I think this one is probably what you would term a Russian Imperial. It does start to lean towards that kind of darker, more roasty, toasty end of the spectrum. Yeah, it reminds me, it does in some way remind me a little bit of kind of Speedway Stout actually, which was one, who is it that does that again? Is it Alesmith? Am I remembering rightly? Alesmith are the ones that do the Speedway Stout, and that's a very, very nice beer actually. So this one, to some degree, it reminds me of the kind of, it reminds me a little bit of the 1050 from Oscar Blues and the Speedway Stout from Alesmith. No, it's quite classic, this actually. I mean, one of my favourite beers is the Herr Fredriksson from Amagerbruchhus in Copenhagen. You know, that's one of the classic Danish imperial stouts, and it's, you know, it's really just top class actually. I really, really love that beer. You know, and this one, to a degree, it does remind me of that as well. So this is almost like a kind of classic Danish Imperial Stout. Some people have argued that those should be a separate sub-style, which I can see there might be a bit of, you know, sort of credence to that argument, but I don't know. This one, to some degree, it does remind me of the likes of 1050 from Oscar Blues and the Speedway Stout as well. But, I mean, regardless, those are very, very good beers, so I guess you can gather by the comparison that this one is pretty damn solid as well. So thumbs up to Alefarm. They've given me a good impression with this one. They have got a few, as I say, when I bought this one on Glassbank, and they had a few Imperial Stouts, and I just picked, you know, there didn't seem to be so much in the way of description about them and, you know, what was distinguishing them, so I just picked one that I liked the name of, to be honest with you. I didn't really want to get 3 Imperial Stouts from the one brewery, to be honest, in that order. So it was either going to be a case of which one has cool artwork or which one has a cool name. And this one, it reminded me of, you know, Stratovarius, the Finnish power metal band. The Dreams Never Leave You. It sounds like, you know, some of their songs. And, you know, Timo Tolkki was always a favourite, one of my favourite guitar players. I always liked him. So yeah, always Stratovarius. This one reminded me a little bit of some of their some of the Stratovarius music, I have to say. But yeah, this is a really nice kind of classic Scandinavian Imperial Stout, this one. And for those of you who are watching from outside of Scandinavia, I'd say that it leans a bit towards that kind of Russian Imperial Stout type category, but a damn good beer, so well done Alefarm. Now this is the sort of one that I would normally share. With my dad. But obviously I'm in Sweden at the moment, so I can't do that. So this is going to be a sipper, I think, for the rest of the evening. This one will last me a good 2 hours or something like that. But let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and see how we get on. So the more and more that I drink of this one, the kind of darker and more roasty it gets. That roasty, toasty black malt just blankets the middle of the palate there. I do think there's a bit of Carafa in this one as well, which is a speciality malt made by Weirmann in Bamberg and Franconia in northern Bavaria in Germany. So because it really does have a bit of that kind of roasty, well-fired bread crust quality there. If you go to the back third of your tongue, the beer is really, really quite bitter actually. You've got a lot of the roasty black malts kind of coming out of there. But as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, that's where it gets quite interesting. So yeah, you do get a bit more sweetness out of it in the middle of the palate. There's almost like an island in the very centre of your tongue, so you've got that lovely kind of smooth chocolatey kind of thing. It's like a really dark chocolate, you know, sort of 80-90% cocoa type thing. You really have that kind of coming out of it, which is great. So yeah, I love how that. I really do love how that goes together. You get that lovely kind of chocolatey island in this one. You do get a few kind of milk, as you go further forward on the palate, you do get a few more kind of milky chocolate notes out of it, like 60%-ish, maybe not even that, maybe about 50% cocoa-ish chocolate, but really it's a very dark chocolatey note that comes out of this one. The brown sugars that were really apparent in the aroma are not so obvious in the flavour, I don't think. I mean, when you've got the liquid on your tongue, you will get a little bit of a kind of treacly, molasses, well-fired kind of caramelly sweetness out of this one. But, you know, it's really, this is a very roasty and dark chocolatey Imperial Stout, this one. It really leans towards that kind of Russian Imperial Stout end of the spectrum, which I've said before, very, very roasty beer, this one. If you go to the front corners of the palate and then move in a little bit, there are a few woody undertones to the beer. If you go to the very centre of the tongue and move forward a wee bit, you get some nice kind of nutty qualities to the beer as well, which I think is really quite nice. So yeah, it's an interesting point to make about this one. Yeah, I like how this. I really like how this. This goes together. Actually, it's taken me back to a type of Imperial Stout that I haven't had in a while. I mean, these days there's a lot of emphasis on the kind of pastry stouts. You know, the big sweet and lactosey type stouts. So to go back to something like this is a little bit nostalgic almost. To go back to what the Imperial Stouts were back in the day. So yeah, that's another thing. I guess maybe that's the kind of reference. Maybe Alefarm are going through a period just now where they're brewing beers from back in the day. You know, let's go back to California, the West Coast IPA. Now they've got this one, which is a more of an old school Imperial Stout actually. But yeah, as I say, it's a really roasty, toasty kind of Russian Imperial Stout, this one. There's not much more to report on what's going on in the malt base with this one. It does get drier and drier the further you go into the aftertaste, and you get more of that black malt and sort of well-fired bread crusty quality pushing its way out of the palate. But in the back corners of the palate then you've got a nice kind of strong earthiness to the beer. So I wonder if there is a bit of English hop in here, but then again you could get similar from the Summit or from the Williamette. But as you come further forward along the side of the tongue, it does smoothen out a little bit. You get a nice little bit of floral aromaticity just on the front corners of the palate, then round the front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in my mind. So I really like that about this. So yeah, well balanced out. There's quite a high IBU to this beer as well, I will say, but we'll talk about that later. On the fruity side of things then, so I always say that the front third of your tongue is usually where the fruity part of the beer comes out. So in this one, of course, you get that little oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And for me, this one, it really has a very nice... it's got a very nice sort of it starts off a little bit sharp almost. Yeah, when you take this beer in, it's got a little bit of a kind of plummy sort of note to it, a little bit of a juicy plum, and then as you go further into the aftertaste it just juicens up a little bit. I don't really get much of a kind of figgy quality to this one. This one, it really starts to lean more towards a blackcurranty, blackberry-ish sort of flavour, actually, and that kind of it does linger a little bit into the aftertaste, but then it's really the dry, roasty parts of the beer that start to kind of take over this one. This is one of the driest Imperial Stouts and most bitter Imperial Stouts I've had in quite a wee while. But you know, the whole beer industry, I think, is leaning towards the whole kind of smooth, fruity, juicy thing on the IPA end of the spectrum, and then it's leaning towards the big sugary, sweet end of the spectrum on the Imperial Stouts, and of course you've got all the sour beers and stuff to go along with that as well. So yeah, this beer is definitely quite an old school Imperial Stout in my opinion, so that's one thing that I really do appreciate about this one, I have to say. So yeah, this is a properly old school Imperial Stout in my mind. So if you like the Speedway Stout, if you like you know, 1050, if you like the, you know, the Marshal Zhukov as well from Cigar City, you know, this is a beer I think that is going to go down well with you. So well done to Alefarm on this. At 11% though, it is a bit of a monster, so you know, share this one with you. This is definitely going to be a sipper for me for the rest of the night. This is the only beer I'm having tonight, definitely. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, what would we say about that? Yeah, you know, it's a pretty... I would say this is a pretty full-bodied beer, kind of at the bottom end of full-bodied though. Carbonation's very smooth, it's got a big kind of oily mouthfeel to it. The yeah, big kind of oily mouthfeel. The carbonation does give it a little bit of crispness, but you've got a huge, you know, I would say overall it's quite a slick Imperial Stout, this one. But in terms of its style, it really is, I think this is more of a kind of Russian Imperial Stout, to be honest with you. But in terms of the bitterness and things, this one's got to be about 80 IBUs. 70 or 80 IBUs. You've got a lot of bitterness from the malt base in this one, the black malts and the carafa that I suspect is in there. And you've got a good bit of earthiness from the hoppy side of the beer as well. Either Summit or Williamette, I think, has been used in this one. So yeah, a lot of bitterness out of this beer. The malt base, it does have a degree of sweetness in the very centre of the palate, but not overly much. And you've got some nice kind of juicy, fruity qualities coming out of it as well, the further that you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together. A pretty old school and kind of nostalgic Imperial Stout for me as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. I think Alefarm have done an awesome job of this. I'd be curious to see how they do with a slightly sweeter stout or a coffee stout or something like this. So I'll need to have a wee look and see what else they've got available. But yeah, it'd be nice to have I think I need to have I think my next review should be one of the New England IPAs, because it's been, must be about 2 years or so since I had one of the New England IPAs from these guys, so we'll keep an eye out and see what we can find from them. But yeah, this one was The Dreams Never Leave You. An Imperial Stout at 11% ABV from Alefarm in Greve out to the west of Copenhagen, who are a very, very good Danish brewery, I have to say. It's just a shame that they seem to have almost disappeared, actually. I'm not sure what the best way to get a hold of their beers is in Copenhagen. Do let me know in the comment section below if you happen to know that, because I've not seen these in Kiosk for quite a little while. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Alefarm Brewing as well. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future, but I thank you again for watching. Make sure you check out this brewery, and I will catch you guys later. Check out my social media, check out Alefarm Brewing, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers. The dreams never leave you. An 11% Imperial Stout, very old school from Alefarm Brewing in Greve on Sjælland in Denmark. Skål.